All right. It is another great one for black belts and boardrooms. Man, these past 2 weeks have been some great weeks for me. I actually got married. I got my power ring on now. Some exciting things have happened. So, of course, we got to have another great episode coming up today. Amir, who do we have today?
Well, Renard, before I introduce Scott, first of all, congratulations, and this is a very big deal. So, best wishes to you, best wishes to Samantha. And I will tell you, you had a Vegas wedding, as did I. So, you and I have another thing in common there, my friend. So, uh, with that put aside, I am actually really excited today to have our guest, Scott Russo, on this call. Just a couple of things from my perspective, and then we'll yield to Scott. I was introduced to Scott through another colleague of mine, and I will tell you, Scott is just absolutely amazing. Not only did I sense somebody who is truly living the martial arts spirit, but I also got the sense that he blends that with his work, which happens to be in cybersecurity. So, without getting into too many details, Scott, welcome to Black Belts and Boardroom.
Thank you, Amir. Thank you, Renard. Congratulations, Renard. And it's really an
Correct.
honor to be here.
Yeah, glad to be here, and thank you for making time for us. Well, Scott, we'll start really easy. How about you share with us, and as much details as you like, or wherever you want to start from, a little bit about your journey, your origin story, if you will.
Absolutely, Amir. Oh, it's a little bit of a wild ride. Get ready for this. I like to think that my life sort of started on February 10th, 2017. Also, nearly ended on that day. So that's kind of the beginning. Picture this: I'm in my playroom. My daughter's there with me, right by my side. I've got a shotgun in my hand. There's somebody on the other side, inside my house. I don't know who, an intruder, on the other side of the door. Sweat dripping down my face because the shotgun is in fact not loaded. And I realize this might be it for me, but I need to protect my daughter. Um, so I'm sure you're wondering, how did I get into that situation? So that was an interesting day. I know I was coming home from work. My wife was leaving for to take some classes. So it was just me and my daughter at the time. I have three children now, but just had one then. And there's a lot of police in my neighborhood, so this is really unusual. All these police cars, and I remember asking what's going on. I was warned we were looking for two criminals. They are armed and dangerous. They've robbed a police vehicle. To be honest, I don't remember if I found that out later or then, but there's criminals somewhere in the neighborhood, so be careful. Lock your doors. Okay, so get home. Playroom seems to be the most secure room I've got in my house. Just two doors, one window. I can kind of close everything up. I got my shotgun. Didn't put shells in it. I kind of figured with with having a young daughter, like I didn't want to have a loaded gun in the house, but I figured it's scary anyway if I need it. And just kind of settled in with her. And then all of a sudden, the door starts to open into the room, and I hear someone shouting in. I couldn't exactly make out what they were saying. Um, but I was like, oh my goodness, there is an intruder in my house. I was just warned about this. I got up, racked the shotgun, you know the sound, said, take another step in and I will put a hole in you. The door closes very suddenly. And so then I told my daughter, hide, run, hide. You need to get to safety. I know that you hear about this whole like fight, flight, or freeze. I was absolutely in fight mode. It's an interesting place to be in like a truly primal sense. Like I'm about to fight because I need to protect my daughter, and there's nothing else I can do right now. I took up the position. There's a door. There's some stairs coming down. I took up a position ready, like if anybody comes through, to scare them. And I was thinking, um, I've got to fight if I have to. Like, and I know it's not loaded, but if I got to come, martial arts got to kick in. I don't know. I'm going to do what I need to because I have to protect my daughter. It also dawned on me that, hey, there may be two armed criminals on the other side of this door. I am probably not going to make it through this. But if I can hold them off long enough and my daughter can hide or get away, that is what I'm going to do. Um, and then something like the rational part of the brain like snapped in for 1 second because I was totally in like fight primal brain mode, but rational brain popped in and was like, what if you don't make it? You need help coming for your daughter. So I called 911 and I told the operator there's intruders in my house. And they said to me, sir, there are police in your house. And so I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, I probably should put my shotgun down then. Can you please communicate to the police, like, not to shoot me? I'm just the homeowner." Um, and short version of what actually happened was, so they had thought the criminals had come in my house in sort of a case of a little bit of confusion. I thought the criminals came in my house too. We happened to end up on the opposite sides of the door. I put the shotgun down. I surrendered, put my hands up. Police came in. I think I had about 9 police officers with guns pointed at me. I definitely appreciate their restraint, but it was an interesting moment. I'm just glad I survived. They checked the whole house. Everything was good. The criminals were not in my house. They did apprehend them later, but it was by far one of the scariest moments of my life, and just that realization of how in a fleeting moment one could just lose their life. A lot went through my head then and in the years after. So I'd say that's pretty much like there was all the many years I had before that and how I was living my life, and in a way just kind of like, oh, you're supposed to get a job, you're supposed to like try to climb the ladder, you're supposed to have a family. Um, but it totally changed my entire view of life, of work, of purpose, of meaning. It set me on an 8-year journey trying to find some sort of meaning in my life, which martial arts, it was something I did when I was young and then became a renewed focus in my life. So that's the start of the origin story. I definitely want to tell you about the years after and like the lessons I've learned and how that all came together, how that influenced my thoughts on life and leadership style and all that. But I'm going to pause there because I know that that alone probably brings some questions.
I'm just sitting here and thinking to myself, if this was me in your shoes in that situation, I know those combat skills are going to be necessary. And I would probably be either, well, I know at least myself this much. I would probably be like you in fight mode for sure, because I get very protective. And I don't doubt Renard probably shares that same sentiment.
I'm gonna agree with that. I'm a little speechless, honestly, on that conversation. You think when you ask somebody their origin story and wonder what that's gonna be, and I would even go into, delving even a little closer, like, how did that change you? You say you changed from who you previously were and who you are now. How did that whole incident and everything that happened, how did it change you?
Absolutely. So many ways. There's definitely a few things I want to touch on as far as how it changed. That's immediately after was a kind of realization. It's like waking up is the best way to describe it. Of like, oh man, I've been kind of just going along day to day, go to work, come home, kids, like repeat. I'm like, I need to find more meaning in my life. And that set me on that journey. And I will say, like, it had a lot of ups and downs. There definitely were some dark periods where I had a lot of questions about the purpose of life and all that. But there was there's some definitive points where I really started to realize some things. Um, there's people involved, so I feel really fortunate because like shortly thereafter, maybe a couple years after actually, but it all feels like it was short. I got this book, Free the Genius by David Martin. It was given to me from some of my colleagues. I was in a group called Tech College. I was their cybersecurity subject matter expert, and it was given to me by an HR colleague. He said this would be a really good book for you, and I loved so much about what was in that book. And he had this chapter, Renard. I think you're going to like this part because trust me, I'm ready for the song question when we get to there. But he talked about how much songs shape the way we think. And I remember one thing he said. So he said, "Songs reshape our minds with lyrics and melodies that evoke vivid pictures and deep emotions. if you listen to them repeatedly, they're like subtle mind control devices. And it like something clicked when I read that chapter about you can really reshape your own reality and like how you see things. So much is in perception just by the thought of like a song can actually change your mood. So I can actually start changing how I look at life and that's like within me and I'm capable of doing that. So that unlocked this like whole journey. And I've met David Martin several times after and he's got a lot of wisdom, definitely a good guy, but he helped me to see how like taking care of your mind is a really critical piece. That was actually what then I said like I need to look at things like getting back into martial arts. Um, so that was like one big eye-opening thing. And then I started getting back into martial arts, but I'm gonna pause there again. Like I want to give you guys a chance of I'm sure this is all provoking questions and things. So I'll
I'll add this, especially when you talked about the music thing. The reason, one of the main reasons, and we ask people their theme music because music to me is the soundtrack of your life. You know, there are different songs throughout your life that can basically tell the story of who you are. So your theme music is the one that you get up every day, you wake up to, but there's other songs throughout your history of your life that just spark a memory, spark something good. It could be with your family, with your kids, your mom, etc. So that's why music is so important. Like you say, music can change your mood. It can. It can when you get ready for, martial arts, if it's taekwondo, jujitsu, whatever, you got that music, it gets you ready for it. So it
Mhm,
puts you in that different mode. So you hit on a very strong topic of that. And I want to switch into we're talking about martial arts a little bit
yeah, yeah.
here. I want to get into that martial arts side of you. You say you got back into it. What made you take a pause in a sense, and we know now after that incident, you got back into it, but I would love to know why you got back into martial arts.
Yeah, absolutely, Renard. So it started with my son actually. He was starting to have some discipline problems, and I knew martial arts is a great way to help kids learn discipline. um, and self control and all those great things. They get some exercise. It's just a great thing for them. So I put my son into back into martial arts at Grandmaster Dong's school here in Richmond, and I'd go with him, and I was just observing the classes, just seeing him practice and him growing. But what really got me into it was it's funny. I was watching in that school. Like I definitely want to shout out the people I really appreciate. So there was Master Bennett, who's kind of runs the school, the head instructor, and then there was instructor Robert, and then there was also instructor Amanda, and then later instructor Lily, like all great teachers. And just the way they interacted with the kids was amazing. But what was more amazing to me as well was they weren't just teaching them, here's how you do self defense. Like they were teaching them so much more about how to build character, be good people. It was just a lot of good principles. And then what I saw was all of these older guys were coming in, and I thought this is a good sign because I'm 40 now and like I don't recover from injuries as quick. So I didn't think I wanted to. I was like, I don't want to do martial arts again. I get hurt and then it's going to be hard. But like I see all these older guys, these professionals, a doctor. Um, there's one guy in particular, Master Solomon, who came in, older guy, kind of hobbled in. He said his knee was hurting. But I gotta tell you, he is a fierce opponent. Despite that, is interesting. Interesting how like fast he is. But just seeing them and what it was doing for them and the joy they were getting out of it, I was like, you know what? I want that goodness. Like I can see that this is good for the mind, not just the body, and like that is something I really need. So that's what drew me back into it.
You know, Scott, I so it sounds to me like you've found purpose so deeply, but then you resonated with the people in the dojo. And some of the things you're saying, I 100% agree with it. Same as my experience. My kids went to martial arts, and we did this as a family. But what prompted you then? Was it the people? Was it your children? What prompted you to jump into the dojo floor with everybody else?
Yeah, yeah. Maybe a little bit of everything there. Certainly, I like the idea of, being with my kids. I had my daughter and my son doing martial arts. My daughter would take the class directly with me. She was a little older. And then my son, I actually once I was trained up, I was actually volunteering. I still am, in the classes to help out. So, like, I had a lot of family bonding. That was good. The people building that community, I realized how important that is too. You get some strong bonds and friendships out of that. So that was definitely part of it. Physical training, I'm probably in the best physical shape of my life at this point, because I train every day. I do a little exercise every day, and like it's really adding up over time. That's one of the principles they taught was like, don't try to learn too much at once, just step by step, and you'll get there. But yeah, that was all good. But truly, like, and this might sound corny, but like I was trying to seek inner peace, and it really felt like taking that time to myself to practice the martial arts um, just gave me that space to reflect as well. And I learned a lot out of that too. But yeah, that all of those things were part of my goals for sure.
You know, I know you. So it's one thing to practice the mind and the body and try to work them in sync. I have found just for myself alone that it shaped who I am as a leader. It taught me certain skills, and I know Renard agrees with me on that point because he and I have conversed on this topic. What are some of the leadership skills that you learned, and how did it change you the way you showed up for your teams?
Absolutely. Happy to explain that. I'm going to keep talking about people because that's my favorite thing to do. This is going to segue back into the martial arts. A lot of what I've been learning is about presence as a key skill for leadership, caring about others as well. So funny enough, there's two leaders that I very much respected in the team I work in. One of them is Kevin Kozlowski. He's my current boss. The other one's John Dergala. He's a VP in our org. And I noticed that both of them, like, they never are stressed. They really seem cool, calm, and collected. Different styles. John Dergala, I noticed he seemed to whenever it got really tense, there's something that needed to be said. He would use humor, and I was like, this is amazing. Like he always has like the right thing to say that like get breaks through the tension. So I asked both of them at separate times, like, would you do a leadership training to the group? Kevin's was keeping calm under pressure. John, I asked him, can you like tell me how you use humor? And I thought what they were going to teach me was going to be like, here's some tips on how to like use humor, or here's tips on how to keep yourself calm. But neither of them did that, which was interesting. Kevin told these heartwarming stories about his family and like struggles in his own life and how that gave him perspective. And he had literally the whole audience, like, or sorry, it wasn't the whole audience. A lot of the audience was crying. All of the audience was moved. Several people were like moved to tears by Kevin. But all he was talking about was his love for his family and like how deeply thinking about others moved him. And then John, instead of talking about like, here's how to use humor effectively, which is what I thought he was going to do, no, he talked about how he's his genuine self and he's really just brings himself and his presence into the moment to be with the people that he's with. So those were like profound things I learned. And then I learned you're very much getting the same when you train martial arts, right? Like, and I think you guys know when I'm sparring an opponent, I have got to be present, don't I? Right? Like, there's only one place for me to be. If I'm anywhere else, I might be taking a punch in the face. I don't know. So,
Yeah, yeah.
but all that time that I can separate from all the chaos in my world and just focus on martial arts. It's like you put on the uniform, you go in the dojo. It's suddenly you're different. You're there. You're present. You're present with your partners. I could feel that, and I could start to train that because that little bit of practice every day makes a huge difference. Of when I'm in work and it's stressful, that natural like calming of myself comes right back. So I like to think that's a lot of what I bring, the presence. But the other piece, it's really thinking about how do I help the people that report to me, my organization, my team? How do I help them grow? Right, they're the key to the success of the team. So that's the other flip side. When I started being an assistant instructor and learning all the tips of like, hey, when you're teaching them, don't teach them more than like two moves at once, right? Like maybe they say they can learn more, but to master it, you've got to take little step by little and help them get there. Little things like that they would teach me, and then I could just bring that right back into work. So I realized like I'm asking someone to do a task, but it's a big thing. But if I can get them to learn the first step, or just make that first step in their career growth, and feel good about that, that compounds over time, and I can really help bring out the greatness that's already in people. So that's what I have brought. And I got inspired by my leaders. I took my journey through martial arts to really reinforce and cement that, and then I just brought that right back.
You know, I felt like I put you on the spot there a little bit, Scott. So thank you for humoring me. But if you, coming back to the leadership piece of it, one of the things that I recognized in myself and some of the folks that I've mentored is that the moment I explain to them my process or where that source is, from martial arts and how I learned and grasped it, there's almost like a light bulb moment. And that has inspired me in many ways because what I recognize is that everybody, to your point, there's a genius inside of them. How do you bring that out, right? That's part of the leadership journey. Is there something in your martial arts experience that you have taken to heart and you said, you know what? This is an important piece that I want to try and instill and live every day or, put it in my kids, for example. Like I do that to my kids all the time and they tell me, Dad, you're doing this. You should be doing maybe some of this too. So
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely there's one that comes to mind. I have another book. I just love like showing off books that I like. So hopefully that's okay with you guys.
love
So
to read.
this one is it's funny because you just look at the title. So it's Where is My Black Belt? And Grandmaster Dong, or Grandmaster for this martial arts school, wrote this book. And you would think this was a kid's book. It tells this like territory war about mice story. It is profoundly wise, the story, and I would not suggest reading it to young children. um, uh, but in any event, it's a great book. There's a lot of wisdom in it. And so one of the things he talks about the story of Wan Hyo, a monk from ancient times, and it's a really interesting story. Maybe you already know this one, but like the punchline of it was attitude is more important than our perceptions. And he talks about that's the true spirit of the black belt is like your attitude. So it just helped. That was part of what helped me see like terrible things can happen. You can have like my situation, right? But that doesn't like how you choose to see it and live is really what matters most. So that was like profound knowledge. Now the key is like how do you unlock that? So this is the difference between like that's the knowledge in the book, but how do you make that like embodied knowledge? So that's part of my practice every morning that I do. Is there is a little bit of like a self affirmation, a little bit of meditation, and that's what's reinforcing that and helping me make that space of like become a leader. You get bad news regularly, right? Like people more often bring you problems than they bring you like here's some good news. So and even when they bring you good news, sometimes you're bracing for what's the punchline of the bad news here. But it really helps that all that practice of like when that moment comes to just be able to like separate yourself for a moment and don't let the like lizard brain jump in and go, oh God, I gotta like react to this. Like take a second and then let the higher functions come into play so you can really, really think through it. So isn't that's kind of like a hilarious thing to get from martial arts is like being very calm and collected. But again, I think you can appreciate when you're Renard, for you rolling on the mat, or Amir and I, like when we're sparring, you've got to be that way, right? Like your opponent's reading you, you're reading your opponent. If you allow yourself to get worked up, you're not going to be doing that anymore, and now you're kind of just flailing, right? So you've got to keep calm no matter what's happening. Definitely, and that I take directly into work. But I definitely say like it's one of those things that's easy to say, but you have to practice it, and it's one that is certainly in that realm of like just little by little. Have people, it's hard for people to adopt that right out of the gate, right? Like little by little, they can practice it.
No. I like everything that you said, especially when it came around martial arts about being present, or you're gonna get kicked in the face, which is true. I look at the same thing for me. If I'm not present on the mats, someone's gonna choke me out, put me to sleep, break something, etc. So you have to be present at that time. I love martial arts for a sense of that anything that you far as have problems for a couple of hours, you don't even have to worry about for a couple hours because you have to be present at that time for with martial arts. And I love how your background in martial art transcends into what you do and want to see other people grow. Love seeing that. And I want to get around your current role that you have.
Yeah.
You're in cybersecurity, you're a senior director. I would love to know more about how that is on a day to day. If you could give us a day of how that goes for you as being a senior director in cybersecurity.
Yeah, absolutely. It's mostly about leadership, I will say that. I was a pen tester at one time, but it's a long time since I've been, like, directly hands-on. Um, I care very deeply about the program that I run, and I look at it as a service we offer to the whole company and really wanna make sure uh, we deliver a good value of the assessments we do and that it's really making a difference for the company. In fact, in my past role, I was actually kind of the customer of the service and I loved it so much. I was like, let me join that team. And I'm very grateful that they made me the leader of the team. But yeah, day to day in my life. So, uh, what's a day like? Well, I have several leaders that kind of run different functions in the team. We do some risk assessments. We also there's the other question, which is what needs risk assessment. So that's a big part of it. And I try to think I'm there where I need to be, right? So I don't need to be in everything. I think is the key. Um, eh, I, some risk assessments are going to benefit from my wisdom and presence. Maybe it's past history of technology I know deeply well. Others, I need to let the team do their thing, kind of be there to bring it over the finish line with them, review it, that kind of thing over in the space where we're identifying, I think I take a much more active role. That's kind of like our customer facing department, like where we work with the teams and really need to build that trust quick. So I think that's an area where I like to be a little more present and involved in the work on a day basis. Really make sure the team feels supported there too. Um, Now, the other thing that I tend to do a lot in this as a senior director is like we have to talk to the senior leaders often, make sure they're briefed and up to speed on anything we're finding, what we're thinking we need to do assessments on. So I'd say that's another big part of my job. There's a lot of reporting that goes into it, and I think that's it's actually a very critical part of the program, right? Is we do the assessment, but we need to make sure we're showing the value that's driving and building that confidence more broadly with the program.
Good. And I want to go into, of course, as us being in tech, we know why cybersecurity, et cetera, is so important. But for listeners who are, like you say, on the opposite end, that don't really understand it, why is cybersecurity so important for a business?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. You know what's interesting about cybersecurity is when you do it right, nothing happens. And so it can seem like you don't need it at all. But when you do it wrong, boy, I think we've seen some news articles about that. So, uh, yeah, I mean, hopefully it's providing some measure of tangible value. It can be hard to say that you stopped anything. But of course, just like anything else, we want to keep a healthy running business. So we need to protect against the threats that are out there that could potentially hinder our ability to do that.
Good, good. And I know the other thing I want to delve into, and of course, since we're all tech people, AI is going to come up in this conversation.
Of course.
I know Amir already has some questions already. I know he's ready, but I'll at least start it off by asking. AI is now it's not going anywhere. It's one of the mainstays that's going to be here going forward. How does that look from your aspect, from a cybersecurity side of bringing a new tool in, but also looking for the other side of it? How are other people, the bad actors, etc., are using that going forward? What are y'all preparing for going forward?
Yeah, AI is definitely making everything more interesting. Let me think what I want to say on this topic. So first off, the world is changing, and AI is driving that change. That is for sure. Um, it was interesting though, wasn't it? Because I'd say a few years ago it was like, what's it like? Come on, like you see what's getting funny
Mhm.
stuff's getting generated. You're like, we're all laughing at it, and then it's like it had a breakthrough. Yeah, I remember years ago I was studying numerical linear algebra, which is like the math behind it. It's part of one of my degrees, and I was thinking like, wow, this is really cool with all these like eigenvectors, eigenvalues. You can model anything, but you need like billions of them. So like you can only model so much, and then here we go, we have billions of them now. But all right, anyway, so it's made this great leap. We all have to adopt it. It is definitely going to be interesting where it takes us. You know, I don't want to give like a thesis on all the things. I want to talk about one specific risk that I see that I think we're not thinking about because there's a lot of obvious ones. Like okay, like it makes it easier to do phishing, make fake videos. Like everybody knows that. But the one that's been most intriguing from my perspective, we're adopting AI more as we work. We kind of have to, right? Like because that's the world is changing. Think about this. Like when I was growing up, like the World Wide Web was becoming a thing,
Mhm.
and people were telling me then don't use it, you can't trust it, like there's horrible things on there, et cetera, et cetera. Like they get like the same story that we're getting now, right? But if you could you imagine like, hey, I don't use the World Wide Web because there's threats there or it could be misused. Could you imagine like you'd be crazy today. They'd be like, okay, cool. Like you could definitely can't work in a corporate office then. So AI is going to go the same way. Now the thing that actually worries me most is us becoming over reliant on AI. Like I wanted to at one point, I still should probably do this, make a shirt that's like, it wasn't my fault the AI did it because of the misuse of AI. That's actually what worries me most. Cause I think like, attackers will figure out how to use AI to attack you better. Defenders will use it to defend them better. The arms race continues as it always has. But I think the one threat that we're kind of blind to at this point, just my opinion, is the misuse of it that could then lead to mistakes propagating just bad quality work that people are like or maybe they're so busy just any of the reasons that work gets rust. I'm so busy I'll just copy and paste the AI answer and they don't realize like it wasn't right and now it's propagating. I've pondered about like again just personal opinion. I've pondered about like okay so you see these tools that write code for you from AI, then you see these tools that test the code from AI. So are you telling me that there's a future where there's literally no humans left and it's just like the code's written and tested and deployed and like we don't even know what's running? I'm just imagining said scenario, but that's the piece I wonder about is like we need to keep humans in the loop, but are humans going to become in a way like complacent about what the AI is doing. So that's the real risk that I am most concerned with personally.
There's a phrase my mentor, or there's a question my mentor asked me some time ago, and it was, "What are you becoming when you're doing what you're doing?" And I asked that question in the realm of AI as well. And it's interesting to hear you say that, Scott, because I think that is a very important question for us to consider. And one of the good examples I heard about recently is that, if you think about machines in general, they work in terms of probabilities because it's a calculator at the end of the day. It works with facts, and those facts are what they are. It's data. But the human mind works in possibilities, and you can't put a mathematical equation behind possibilities. So to that end, I do wonder the same way you do, which is what are we going to become as a community? Let me pick your brain a little bit more on that perspective. Let's say, your kids are growing up and they sound like they would be consuming AI probably more so than our generation, you, me, and Renard. How do you see that playing out for them? Because as a parent, I'm sure some of that resonated with you, and maybe there's a thought there that you can reflect on with us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it will become very similar to could you think of having a day without something on the internet, right? Like that's unthinkable today. I think AI is going to be that pervasive in their lives. And I think it's very important that kids start to learn how to use it. We need to be mindful because there are dangers there. There are risks there. There were risks there with the internet. But if we kind of say like you can't touch it at all, they're not prepared for those risks as they grow and become adults, right? So I think they need exposure to it. I think they need to learn it. I think it's going to reshape many things in their lives. It will probably reshape the kind of jobs and careers that there are available. So in my mind, it's important that they engage with it and learn, and that we make safe ways for them to do that. I definitely would not shut my kids away from it, but it also makes me nervous as a parent. It's one of those things that lives in that realm of cognitive dissonance of like, I really want my kids to know and use AI, but man, am I terrified of them knowing and using AI.
Well, you being in cybersecurity, I think you probably have a more refined and nuanced, view of the threats for your kids. And I'll only speak for myself. I don't think about cybersecurity on a day in day out basis, but I do wonder: is it going to be like social media where we limit the hours with AI?
Man, there's probably a whole set of products and tools to be sold in that space. But anyway,
Yeah,
that's great, Amir.
yeah. So, and it's an interesting thought exercise. We talk about our kids, but then you extend it to the kids in your community, in your city, the state, and so on. Uh, and eventually, I picture myself growing old and seeing these kids as future leaders. How are they going to make decisions if there's AI? So, I guess there's a people perspective to it, right? So, as entertaining as it could be for myself to think about it, I know that there's very real implications here, and I'm sure from a cyber perspective, you probably think about maybe an angle that I'm not even touching on right now.
Quite possibly, Amir. Did
Yeah.
you want me to share some more thoughts on that?
I would love to
Please.
I would love to hear your unfiltered thoughts, Scott,
My
if any.
unfiltered thoughts. So one of the here's like a technical thing, okay?
Yeah.
So when we get into that realm, when you're looking at AI, a lot of the same old risks we've seen apply. One thing that is exceedingly concerning to me, just my perspective, whenever you're using AI or setting up an AI system, it requires an awful lot of data to train it to make it effective. So when I look at other systems, maybe the data is not so centralized. But when you look at AI systems, it's like you've just taken like so much and put all the eggs in one basket. So that is one thing I worry about. I don't know if that's where you were going, but from a systems perspective, man, is there a lot of information in those systems, and you always hear like, oh yeah, but it's like safe. It's not going to come out in responses. But I don't know. There's been prompt injections and all kind of things. So that to me is semi worrisome. Of like, there's a lot of eggs in that basket. A lot of interesting ways to manipulate the LLMs and all that. So we'll see where that goes. I imagine we'll learn in the future. The You asked earlier about why we need cybersecurity. So even at my best, I cannot possibly imagine all the ways that this thing can go wrong, right? Like that's how cybersecurity and risk people think. We're filled with anxiety. We constantly ask what could go wrong, but there's so many scenarios. There's lots of great documents on the standards and books and all these things on all the various scenarios, but I don't think anybody can imagine everything possible that could go wrong. It takes That's why you do and have independent people do reviews. I think that it's going to be different in different situations. Uh, yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of risks. I highly doubt I can tell you and imagine all of them, but look at the data is where I would say go. Like my ethical hacker instinct is like, man, there's a lot of data there. There's going to be problems in that space.
Yeah. Well, slop is coming.
Yeah, yeah.
I see that, and me and Amir talk about AI in general. We always say the human factor has to stay around, has to be the most important thing. You look at it as from the crawl, walk, run phase. We're like in between that crawl and walk right now. We're not at run, and AI still it needs us. The human factor still has to stay part of it. Like you said, you have to give AI so much information in order to really start understanding you. That's a lot of information you have to give it. But it also goes back to, do you trust that information? I think that's part of the human factor. You have to know that if you can trust that information as given, you just can't blindly say, I'm going to take this information, I'm going to go with it, I'm going to run with it. You have to have that human factor, like, okay, I have to use my own knowledge, my own mind to understand if this is right. Because I've used, just let's say, ChatGPT. ChatGPT has given me a wrong answer before, and I knew it was a wrong answer. I was like, that does not make any sense what you just gave me. And then I'll ask you, where did that come from? Oh, well, previous conversation, I'm like, that makes no sense. So you take it for a grain of salt and move on. Now, I am on the same aspect as AI is going to help us take care of the low hanging fruit. We said it many times, but then all of a sudden, newer jobs will become available because AI is ingrained in what we do now, and that's what I'm looking forward to. What are these new jobs going to be? What are we going to do next? So that's the view I have from my standpoint. Of course, security, I'm with you on that. I definitely agree. Like if you got the good side and then you got the bad side, but going from AI, we're going to see what's happening with quantum computing next. The question I have for you, especially when it comes to AI and quantum computing, and I'm sure you thought about this. What's going to help? What is AI going to help quantum computing, or is quantum computing going to help AI?
Boy, yeah, that's a good question. So probably both to some degree. Quantum computing is really I've been hearing about it for 20 years, you know. um, it's always coming. So there's that Monty Python scene where they keep running to the castle, but they're never quite there. And like eventually it'll get there. And I think similar to like with how the breakthroughs with the cloud and the amount of computing resources and the GPUs that enabled AI to really break out. So the whole how many eigenvectors do you need? And years ago when I said that, I was like, wow, they'll never get there. But now it's like, okay, it's there, I guess. I think quantum computing is going to do the same thing. But to your point, AI will probably help because it can analyze things that we humans may struggle with. But then having that capability enhances the ability for the AI. I wonder if you'll see some sort of like it accelerates itself forward there. That will be very interesting given all the potential risk consequences of quantum computing.
I like it. I like it. I wanna segue a little bit backwards. We talked about martial arts for a while, but I never got this answer. I was always curious about that when we were talking about martial arts. You're a martial artist, but then you started coaching. What made you want to go into say, hey, I want to start coaching people in martial arts? Because there's a difference. You could be great at martial arts, but be terrible as a coach. So what made you decide, hey, I want to teach others and push them forward?
I wish I had some like profound thing for this one, but this is going to be kind of silly. So I was a little bit terrified of children. Um, I went so like I went when I joined Capital One. I joined in the tech college, and part of it was teaching. And I'm like totally fine teaching adults, speaking publicly in front of adults. But like children always terrified me with the factor of like they're a little bit chaotic, you know, and unpredictable. Um, and so I saw that there's opportunity to do that, and I saw other parents who were like also had their black belts typically who were like helping out with the kids, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to overcome this fear, and I'm like, it'll be good learning. Like I don't know what the learning is going to be, and man, has it been a lot of good learning just about how to get that growth mindset. But it was originally to overcome my fear of teaching children and like just dealing with children in general, which I'm well overcome by now. But yeah, and then it was like, holy moly, I'm like, one, it's nice to help others. That piece of selflessness is like core to our art, and I do find a lot of satisfaction in that. But I've also learned a ton from like teaching. I feel like you're learning as much in the process. So once I overcame my fear of coaching children, I was like, I'm just gonna keep going and see what else I can get and what I can give to.
So, Scott, I will say you're not the only person who has been scared of kids, and that's one of the reasons. I had to do the same thing. I got a chance at a previous school when I was probably around a blue belt and got to train kids. I was scared because it's easy to train an adult. That's easy. But even other martial artists, other coaches have said, like, if you really want to know how to teach, teach kids. If you really
Yes,
wanna learn how to be a
yes,
coach, teach
yes.
kids. They always tell me that the adults are easy. Teaching an adult is a lot easier than teaching a kid. If you can teach a kid and they can grasp that, then you become a really good teacher. So I definitely understand the fear because they're unpredictable. Kids are unpredictable. they'll pay attention 1 minute, go run off to the next, and it depends what age. So it really does definitely teaches you patience when it comes to kids and teaching them and instructing them. And then you got to teach it a little bit differently than you would adults. So I definitely agree. I know Amir probably does as well. It's just it's a different feeling when you're teaching kids over adults. So you're not the only one. I definitely understand that journey.
With kids, I found myself always having so much fun because I get to be silly, and kids love that. And with adults, you don't have to be silly. They'll either ignore you or they just won't pay attention. But kids will always tell you what they're feeling, and I love that about kids. They will tell you how they're feeling. "Oh, this is terrible. Why are you making me do that? Oh, this doesn't sound like fun. Oh my god, I'm tired." Like, you get it unfiltered, and that is the funnest part, I think, being an instructor teaching, a group of kids.
I love it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Funny thing is, definitely was a different style with kids, right? Because like adults are more self motivated, have better self discipline. But I do think like a lot of the little principles about how to help them learn and grow. I'm like, why do we forget this as adults? Case in point that like don't try to learn too much, right? Even as an adult, it's overwhelming. In fact, my memory gets worse and worse the older I get. So it helps if it's let's not try to learn like 20 moves today. Maybe just like four is good today. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. It's you're exactly right. Kids come with a really wonderful energy, and some of them they're so grateful too. Like it's amazing. So I don't know why I was scared the whole time because it turned out it wasn't that scary. But yeah,
It's that area of uncomfortableness. Like you weren't sure, and then all of a sudden you did be like, "Oh man, I should have been, teach some kids, and you just see the smile, especially the ones who really get into it. You always have a couple of kids who really, really get into that martial arts. They want to compete, etc. So you just see that, and then all of a sudden you see them grow. They get older, and they're still competing. They're still doing it. And all of a sudden, at some point, they start beating you. They get to a certain age, and then all of a sudden you're like, "Wow, like, okay." But I agree. I think coaching actually does help you in your professional life as well. You understand the difference of being on both sides as a martial artist who's learning and the person who's coaching and have to teach and has to teach it as well. So definitely understand. So Scott, I know we're getting close to time. I ask everyone on our show what's their theme music. So, Scott, what is that theme music that gets you ready for the day? What's that one song for you?
that one song, it's "Unstoppable" by Sia. It just gets me fired up and ready for my day, and feeling like no matter what comes at me, I can overcome it and succeed. So that's my getting pumped up and ready for my day music.
I love it. I love it. I can hear it right now for some reason. I can hear it right now. So that's great. So that's great. So Scott, thank you so much for coming on Black Belts in Boardrooms. It has been an honor to hear your journey. You're doing so many great things, and we just love the journey that you're on. Like I said, cybersecurity is important. People need to remember that. So for our Black Belts and Boardrooms listeners, we will see you on the next one.